Hello, human flesh consumers, and welcome to another wonderful edition of The Mind of an Atheist. I am your head cannibal, Jeremiah, from No God, No Peace, No God, No Peace. Joining us also tonight is Travis, who will also be representing KGNP. And tonight we've also got Tom from Truth Explained. So, Tom, go ahead and tell us a little bit about what Truth Explained is and what exactly you do.
Sure. It's a website, Facebook page, truthexplained.org, and we just go through and try to unravel the mystery of the Bible and try to break down some stuff, and got some great links over there with some good information on how to dissect some of the contradictory claims and things like that. So it's a good bit of time, and I pretty much enjoy it when I can get to it.
All right, sounds good, buddy, and we thank you, of course, for coming on, representing Truth Explained on the show tonight. You've always been a good guest, so it's good to have you back. Also, we've got Travis from KGNP. Travis, I know I'll do the plug-in for the page, but go ahead and tell us about yourself.
Well, I've been an admin on the page for a few months now. I try to post pretty regularly. This is my time being on the show, and I can contribute some pretty good stuff tonight.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, Travis was also on the episode where we talk about dealing with religious family members. So, Tom, were you on that episode too? I feel like you were.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, he was.
Yeah, it was you and Ellie.
Eliza.
Yeah. All right, well, normally we would have a fourth person tonight, but some sort of miscommunication happened, and we did not end up with a fourth panel member. So maybe one will pop in later. I can't guarantee that, but hopefully you won't be bothered.
It's a surprise guest.
Yeah, it could be the devil, but no, in all seriousness, we hope you won't mind the absence of a fourth guest. But, of course, I'm Jeremiah from United Atheists of America, No God, No Peace, No God, No Peace. UAA has been around for longer than I have, I think. It was originally run by John, but he stepped down, and now a bunch of people run the UAA, and it is currently at 50,000 plus likes, so I'm real excited. I'm always excited to be part of UAA. It's a wonderful, wonderful Facebook organization. If you haven't yet, go ahead and give it a like. They're selling all kinds of memorabilia, including t-shirts and wristbands for charity purposes. So if you would like to get some gear that reps who you are and also help out people who need it, go ahead to UAA and pick up some of that gear. No God, No Peace, on the other hand, is my creation. We created it last summer. It serves to do four things. No God, K-N-O-W, is dedicated to showing the harm from those who worship God, or gods, plural. No Peace, N-O, is dedicated to showing the literal harm that comes from that, meaning bombings or murders or vicious beatings, whatever the case might have been. No God, N-O, is atheist humor, which could be memes, jokes, Bible poking fun of, Quran poking fun of, whatever might come about. And No Peace, K-N-O-W, is dedicated to pointing out the good of secularism and that secularism has done in your community and ours. So if you haven't, go ahead and give both of those pages as well as Truth Explained a like, and go ahead and rep all the pages from all the guests who have ever been on, because we are closing in on our one year anniversary, but we'll get to that in just a short bit of time. Well, I would like to make a quick couple of announcements before we officially get going. The first one is, as always, we are looking for more panel members to be on the show. If you think that you could contribute wonderfully to the show, and I think you could, go to the Mind of an Atheist Facebook page. Just search that in Facebook. It should come right up for you. Send us a message telling us why you think you'd be a good guest, and I personally will communicate to you from there. Don't you feel special? So if you think you can get on and contribute, go ahead and do that. Prior experience in doing this sort of thing is not necessary, but we will smile upon you. One of our other major announcements is, and this is the last time I'm going to try to plug this if this doesn't take off, but we have a Reddit now. If you are a Reddit user, you can go to reddit.com/r/mindofatheist and find us there. We try to post cool stuff there, so if you want to help us out there, please go ahead. Of course, you can always follow Mind of an Atheist on the Facebook page, and I strongly suggest that you do that because we post all kinds of cool stuff, including stuff that we can't get to on the show normally due to time constraints, or stuff that, for example, we're going to share Truth Explained over there tonight. We're going to share a couple other stuff I'm sure that we talk about here tonight. But so I strongly encourage everyone to go to Mind of an Atheist Facebook page and give that a like. And, of course, I don't know if you guys have Twitter handles, but if you want to follow me on Twitter, just follow @JeremiahClump with an underscore in between my two names. If you guys have Twitter handles, you can go ahead and tell us what they are. No Twitter?
I do not have a Twitter.
I do, but
okay.
More personal.
Okay. Very well, then. So what is the topic of tonight's show? Yeah, next time. Okay. So what is the topic of tonight's show, ladies and gentlemen? Very simply put, culture. And I know that's a broad term. I know that means a lot of things. It encompasses a lot of different things, doesn't it? Well, that's the fun part, because tonight we're going to go on for 2 hours about how religion has impacted and or destroyed culture. And I know that's a big claim to make, but I have a feeling that we have a lot of stuff to back it up. So let me remind everyone as we kick off here that you can participate on the show by being awesome and dropping comments in the video. So if you have something you'd like to say, go ahead and leave a comment in the video. We want to let you know that when what you're seeing and what we're saying is approximately 30 seconds apart, maybe more. So if we get to something after the fact, we apologize. That's just how it works. But we do encourage you to participate, even if you're watching after the show, because we go back and read them. So we encourage everyone who watches to participate. Now, that being said, folks, culture encompasses a lot of things. We're talking about music, we're talking about movies, we're talking about politics, we're talking about your community, we're talking about media, we're talking about a lot of things, because in my opinion, culture encompasses everything that is community, that is society, and that is government. And I think that religion has played a big part in impacting this. So I want to give you guys an opportunity to go before I do, because I talk all the time and I never shut up. So if you guys have something you'd like to start with, I want to throw it over to you.
Well, I think one thing you just mentioned in introduction was how culture expands very broadly. The thing that really kind of jumped out at me was the music.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm a huge fan of hip hop, but I do listen to a lot of different types of music. I work in a bunch of different places where blare music over speakers, and you have to pretty much learn to like everything or go crazy. Mm-hmm. But one thing about the particular type of music I favor, hip hop, is that it is very Christian oriented, or not necessarily Christian oriented, but you're expected to be a believer if you're a rapper, or if you're someone who likes to listen to that type of music, because there's a lot of heavy religious references in the music. There's Christian rap. Some of the mainstream rappers that you hear on the radio 50 times a day, they tend to make lots of different religious references, and there's all these types of things that are just reinforced over and over. And I feel like over time, if you're hearing these songs 50 times a day on the radio, and you're hearing them on every album you buy, you're hearing all these references, it's almost as if it's being reinforced. Sure. I wouldn't say indoctrinating per se, because it's music. You really have your choice of the type of music you want to listen to, but it is heavily reinforced in the mainstream media. And right, exactly.
Yeah. Okay, well, out of curiosity, because you said something that piques me there, when you said that you're almost expected to be a believer if you're a fan of hip-hop. Now, see, I'm not personally a fan of hip-hop, so I can't speak on that, but bringing that up is interesting because, and I know you're probably going to kill me for this, but most of the popular hip-hop that I hear involves things like how much money we have and how many women we can get, and like what kind of car am I driving, and how many different forms of insults can I throw at you because I'm so much better than you. And I know that's probably I know that's not all of it. I'm very aware that there's really good hip hop and really good hip hop artists with positive messages and strong things, but there is definitely that side to hip hop, and it's very interesting to me that if that exists, I'm curious to know why you feel that you're almost encouraged to be a believer when all of that material is also present.
Well, the reason I say that is because if you take, for instance, an artist that everybody would probably recognize, Kanye West.
Okay.
One of his most popular songs is a song called Jesus Walks. And that's one of the songs that actually really kind of introduced me to him when he first came out. But not just that song in particular, but in a lot of his songs, he makes references to how he prays. He prays to God, and he thanks God for everything he has, and God has blessed him with the success he's had and all these types of things. And I feel like if you're going to be a fan of Kanye West and you like his music, you're expected to believe in these things that he's saying in his songs about religion and God. And there are a lot of different artists that are that way. Like what you said is very true. The mainstream hip hop artists that are out there, they do talk about, money, cars, and misogyny, and all those different types of things. But there's also religious undertones in the music as well. Kind of like the example I just gave about Kanye West. A lot of artists talk about how they pray and how they talk to God and how they feel blessed that they're, put in the position that they are in life, and those types of things. So, I feel like if you're gonna be a fan of that type of music, you're almost expected to, have to believe in that, because if you don't, then you're an outcast.
Right. Okay. Now, stemming from that, because that's a really interesting perspective. Once again, I don't know a whole lot about Kanye other than what is shown on TV and what makes its way around the internet. Obviously, because Kanye has some behavioral issues that have stood out in the past. The question is, if those undertones exist, for example, in Kanye West music, if I'm not mistaken, he also wrote a song called Gold Digger, which is about, and correct me, it's about a girl who is dating either him or a character that he's created because she likes his money. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
how does someone like Kanye West justify writing songs about gluttony and writing songs about other sins, and at the same time write songs about, I thank God for everything that I have, he's the reason, he is it almost, and let me phrase it like this, and you can change this if you feel, but does it almost seem like he's passing the burden for the bad off on God and accepting the good as his own work?
Well, I think that's a good way to look at it. It's a very good question that you're asking, and I think that's just a lot of the hypocrisy that kind of goes on in religion as well. And I think it goes along those same lines. Like you just said, he writes songs about religion and his religious beliefs and how he's thankful for the situation he's in. But at the same time, he talks about gluttony, he talks about greed, and he brags about it. And it almost kind of reminds me of, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the show, but it's a show called Preachers of L.A.
I'm not, but I've heard of it, but I'm not familiar. So
it's basically a reality show about these 4 or 5 different preachers who are pastors of these huge mega churches with like thousands of people. And they drive Bentleys and Mercedes, and they live in like 14 million square foot houses and whatnot. And it kind of goes along that same line. I think that the Bible is very clear that rich people aren't going to get into heaven, yet these guys are driving like Bentleys and Mercedes and Maybachs and all these different kinds of things. So
right.
I think there's just kind of that side of hypocrisy to it.
Mm-hmm. Now, Hammer the Gods in the comments has said that most people who listen to hip-hop in the U.S. are Christians. Now, as a fan of hip-hop who is not a Christian, how well does that statistic hold up? How many of your peers, musical peers, do you feel are Christian? And does that feeling of being maybe 1 in 1,000 impact the community that you involve yourself in when it comes to music? Does it make it harder to go to shows? Does it make it harder to explore new artists? Does it make it harder as a fan to connect with the artists that you like? How does that work for you?
Well, for me, it's just more of an appreciation for the music itself and the content, where the parts of the music where religion is brought up in it, and I've kind of developed a sense to just overlook that part of it. But I tend to listen to more artists that don't dwell on the religious side of they make music just for the sake of making good music, and there's not a lot of religious reference. Lately, I've just kind of come to start to listen to a lot of artists that really just don't go there with the music. But I try to just overlook it when it does come up, and I just try to appreciate the music for what it is.
Okay. So one final question, then I want to jump over to Tom for something. One of the other things we were talking about when it came to, specifically when we were talking about Kanye West, was that obviously he's one of the biggest rappers in the world, and he has a humongous following. Now, with that following will come admiration, and with admiration will come semi-worship, if you will. You know as well as I do that there are people who can cling to a celebrity and don't let go. So with that in mind, does Kanye West, with such a powerful platform, presenting such a religious front, pose a danger to culture in that with the evolution of his music will come the evolution of an idea that is potentially harmful to society?
You mean in a sense of sort of idolizing him? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, sort of a false idol, which is sort of ironic. But if people continue to idolize people like Kanye West, who have a strong message of religion and strong religious push, does that in turn pose a danger to the rest of the world? And I don't mean like literally exploding things, blowing things up, but I mean the continuance of an idea that is harmful to the world.
I think it is. I think it's a shame because, like you said, he is one of the most well-known rappers in the world. He literally, his music reaches pretty much every country and every continent. He does tours, and everybody knows who he is. And if he's putting these messages, however subtle they may be in his music, I mean it's constant reinforcement. And him, along with every other rapper that does the same thing and who have this kind of worldwide acclaim, I do think it is a bad thing.
Okay, now I want to jump just a tad bit because Tom and I are both musicians ourselves, and if I'm not mistaken, Tom, you were once a member of a Christian band. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Tell us about your experience as a member of a Christian band.
Geez, where do I begin? A lot of that comes down to it didn't matter what kind of music we really were playing. It could be whatever, and people would love it in our local church. However, there were many occasions where the music that I tend to play is more on the heavy side, heavy metal, hard rock type music, and and there's places where we've gone where people have walked out, where pastors came up to us and told us to stop playing because we're devil worshiping and things of that nature. And there's other places who absolutely loved it. But just like with the Kanye West stuff, don't be fooled. I mean, there's many Christians who are out there preaching against Kanye West, even though he has some message of God or prayer in it. Just like we were doing, we had so many people come up to us afterwards and want to pray for us for our devil-type beats and our 4/4 time and changing, rhythms in the middle of a song. I mean, it was pretty annoying at times.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, it was quite fascinating.
Yeah. So let me jump back here just a bit to the section where you were talking about people who would walk out at the music you were playing because they thought it was demonic. The message that I've always portrayed from the average Christian is that the Word of God is powerful among all things, meaning that no matter what the deliverance system is, the method or the message itself is more important than the method of delivery. So with that being said, wouldn't it be more important for the Christians who walked out on you to listen to the music regardless of the genre because the message was there? And the example that I'll cite for this is one of the most powerful Christian metal bands. And yeah, I know that's kind of weird, but Christian metal bands, one of the most powerful Christian metal bands in the world is a group called As I Lay Dying. And they have not denied their Christian roots. They have not denied that they are a Christian-influenced band. How is it then that the message is less important than the musical deliverance system that is chosen?
That's a really good question. And I don't know. I think it comes down to people's own preconceived notions that it has to involve piano with no drums, with no electrified music. Even our band, at times, we would take old hymnals and just turn them into nice hard rock song, and it still didn't matter. Even though it was the same hymnal, the same message underneath, a lot of people were extremely offended that for some reason because we had electric guitars and drums, that somehow that turned that song, which had a great meaning to it for everyone that has heard it in church on a Sunday morning, it somehow is now from the devil. It really made no sense to me either, and I was just trying to bring my style of music to people who maybe would understand it a little bit more, and that didn't go over well all the time. So it's very, very confusing to try to understand. I think it just comes down to some of these people, these pastors and different conservatives, deeply conservative people just were very uncomfortable with the idea that there was distortion or a guitar solo in the middle of Amazing Grace, and that's really all it came down to.
So now the next question I have is pretty simple. I think most people would agree that music is a universal language. You don't have to speak Chinese to understand the music that someone from China creates, and you don't have to speak English to understand that a song that someone from America or Europe creates. So wouldn't it be beneficial to these religious higher figures to encompass all branches of music, considering that no collective group of people will guaranteed listen to the exact same thing?
Yeah, you would think so. One other thing that I will mention about that too is the scripture. They would pull out a scripture which essentially states that do not be of the world, like the people in the world are. But at the same time, music doesn't matter what form it is. Like you're saying, to me, it is universal. Depends on how you deliver it.
Right.
I don't see any difference with that.
Right. So the question that this all begs is, once again, to get back to the point of wouldn't the message be more important than the delivery system? Why would God have a preference in music? And that's my question. This is a being who's supposed to be all-knowing, all-powerful, all-loving, all whatever you can throw in there. He's supposed to know it all. If that's the case, why would he care that you were in a church playing heavy metal? He either would have known you were going to do that beforehand and would appreciate or should appreciate that you were trying to share his word to other people through your own personal means, which should mean something to him, or he's too malevolent to care anyway, at which point it wouldn't matter if you were playing heavy metal in a church. So either way, I don't see how using any form of delivery in this sense, of course there's other forms, but we won't get into that, using any form of musical delivery, I don't see how that would have hindered or helped him any more or less, no matter if it was country or rock or rap or Gregorian chant. It doesn't seem to really matter to me. Do you agree?
Doesn't matter to me. The only explanation I have is that there probably isn't a God.
So the conclusion that this draws to me is that the idea of metal music being of the devil is less of a scriptural notion and more of a cultural notion that has arrived from something that is different from the typical happy-go-lucky family structure being introduced to something that is considered upright and perfect. And the church is considered upright and perfect when you look at it from a blind face. So if that is the case, couldn't we make the argument that anything but just solid organ is evil? And if we make that case, there's solid organ in certain metal music. There's solid organ in certain rap music. So at what point does music become an irrelevancy to the religion in general? At what point is music something that is just a separate entity that needs to be respected as such? I think the fact that certain music has been deemed evil or less appropriate is a testament to a cultural deficiency more than it is to a religious indifference.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And just to mention, I bet you back 150 years ago, the new hymnals that may be coming out at the time, people were in uproar about them at that time. Mm-hmm. Things change as things go along as well, too.
Yeah. So my next question is for either of you two, because either of you two can answer this. That brings me to the topic of music that is called Christian rock, Christian rap, Christian, and I'm not talking about the stuff that has undertones at this point. I'm talking about groups that have made music where every song and every album is literally Christian music. How then can we have genres like Christian metal, Christian hardcore rap, Christian rock, with these types of music being rejected by the church, being rejected by the monarchical system that is the Catholic Church and such? How is it then that we can have these genres of music that are creating art that is opposed by the church with a message that is supported by the church?
It's a paradox. It's pretty funny. Here, locally where I live in Birmingham, on Sundays, they'll play. They have about a 2 or 3 hour block on the radio where they'll play nothing but like Christian rap or Christian R&B, Christian, what have you. And it's pretty funny because a little bit earlier, Tom, you mentioned that there are some people out there that are like protesting against the artists like Kanye West and the mixed messages in the music that he brings. And it's pretty ironic because when I found myself in the car one day and my radio just happened to be on that station, and the song that came on was a Christian rap song, but I honestly couldn't tell that it was Christian rap. I mean, it sounded like just a regular run-of-the-mill mainstream hip-hop song, but then he said something about Jesus, and I was like, whoa, wait, what? And so I honestly think there's kind of a blurred line between what people kind of consider, or the line is blurring, I should say, between what people consider Christian rap versus, I guess you would say, hardcore Christian rap. I mean, it just seems like, there's a lot of the same content, but I mean, there is a Christian tone to it.
Right on. What about you, Tom? What do you think? Do you mostly agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. Like you said, it's a paradox. You know, it's like you want it to be one way, and another, on the opposite end, they want it to be different as well. I mean, it comes down to, I think, they try to dissect people and who they are and portray themselves to be. Are they out saying they are role models for God or Christ or whatever they are, or are they living a life of whatever? And I think possibly it may come down to that in some respects, for these people who will say, well, this guy's not good because we just saw him doing this. It comes down to judging essentially the lifestyle of the musician, rather than understanding what maybe the music is. So yeah, it's a paradox.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it can't be both ways, but apparently it can be, right?
Right. And I think the final point that we should make about this, because I think we're closing on the half-hour point, so I think we should move on to another topic pretty soon. But one of the final points I'll make about this is you said it comes down to dissecting the lifestyle of the artist himself. Now,
Sure.
do you believe, or would you? I guess that might not be the best way to say it. I guess the best way to say it would be: do you think that most Christian artists live a Christian lifestyle? Or do you think that there is one man or woman behind the music and one man or woman behind the life, and they don't necessarily intertwine? What would you say is a likely scenario when it comes to Christian artists and their livelihoods?
Well, I can tell you from experience that I actually know a guy who was a quote-unquote hardcore rapper, but then converted to becoming a Christian rapper, and I can tell you for a fact that he doesn't live the Christian lifestyle. I honestly believe that some people make the conversion from whatever genre of music they're playing into the Christian version of that genre, simply because they feel like that'll be able to reach more people, and they'll maybe kind of get a little more notification or recognition in that way. And I'm not saying they don't necessarily believe what they're saying, or believe what they're trying to preach in their music, but I do believe a part of the inspiration for wanting to do that type of music is because they know there's going to be people who want to listen to that type of music. There's going to be people who agree with that type of music, and so they can potentially reach those people and get a notoriety that way.
What about you, Tom? As a person who was formerly in a religious band, did you necessarily live the Christian lifestyle while you were part of a Christian band? Not to put you on the spot or anything, but we're not judging you now.
Yeah, right. It was so long ago, but I would say that I was probably no different a person than I am today. So, I mean, there's that word sin. I mean, what people classify what being is. Yeah, I did a lot of things that were considered bad and still got up on stage. And unfortunately, the difference between that time and today is that I used to feel guilty about it then. I don't anymore, right? So yeah, it just comes down to whether or not you understand what sin is, I guess, and just people being people. I'm not talking about going around and destroying people's lives or anything, but I mean, there's definitely things that are looked down upon if you're a Christian, that people would, if they knew, they would be like, oh, he's up on stage professing, Jesus, and I just saw him over there kissing his girlfriend, and they're not married, just stuff like that,
Right. I guess as we move on here, Ryan in the comments to Hammer the Gods makes a good point. If someone can make money on it, it will be made. And I think when it comes to a lot of this religious music, that's what's really at foot here. And I'm not suggesting that all religious artists are just in it for the money, but I would be willing to bet that there were a select number that were absolutely the case. And I guess I'll make the final point on this subject. When I was younger, roughly 11th grade, 12th grade, and high school-ish, I got really big into a couple of bands. Those two bands, namely, were Skillet and Flyleaf. And when I got into those two bands, I was just like, this music is great. Like, these guys are good musicians. Like, I respect this music. And then later on, I got into a group called Red. And these three bands, for a long time, I was just like, wow, these guys are like really driven musicians. These guys are like really good. Wouldn't you know it, within a span of about 45 minutes, I found out that all three of those bands were Christian bands because they all came on my Pandora station, and the bio all started with Christian band X, Christian band Y. Needless to say, I was a little bit disappointed. However, I think it taught me something at the same time when I was listening to this music and then finding out after years of listening to this music in some cases and months in other cases that despite the fact that a band or song might be religious, such as I Lay Dying or Flyleaf or Red or Skillet or whoever else, despite the fact that a band might identify with a certain religion, there's a line that you can draw where you can respect the art that's being produced and disagree with the message, or as Travis suggested earlier, overlook the parts of the message that are not necessarily in your favor. So I think while there are songs that I undeniably can't listen to anymore, for example, All Around Me by Flyleaf, now that I know what that song is about, it's too obvious for me to enjoy it. But there are other songs, for example, the band called Red has a song called Mystery of You, and I understand that it has that message, but at the same time the lyrics are portrayed in such a way that you could believe it to be about something else. So I think, sure, sometimes finding this kind of stuff out will kill a band or kill a song for you. Mm-hmm. But I think at other times you can respect the fact that these different people have what's driving them, and if it's driving them to make good music and the music can be listened to, by all means listen to it. Because just because someone disagrees with you doesn't mean you should outright reject the art that they produce. And I think the biggest statement of that is Johnny Cash. Johnny Cash and I couldn't be farther apart on our religious beliefs. But do I listen to Johnny Cash's music at every opportunity? You better believe that I do. Because Johnny Cash was a phenomenal musician. So that, I guess the final point of this will be respect the art even if you don't respect the message.
Right. Yeah, so, I agree with that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that being said, I think the place that we should segue next would actually be, because this thing has portrayed music in such a bad light for such a long time, we have to talk about the media. Because the media has done a wonderful job of a lot of things. The main thing is that all media sources anymore seem to have an agenda. Fox News, clearly conservative. MSNBC, clearly liberal. CNN, clearly dumb. I think the fact is that all of these different news networks have an agenda. They know they have an agenda, and they don't have a problem with having an agenda. Where they have a problem is admitting that they have an agenda. And what I want to talk about now, to start this off, and then I'll let you guys go wherever you want to go with it. A couple of weeks ago, maybe even last week, maybe sooner, the Oklahoma Capitol was brought to quite the halt when it was revealed that a satanic group intended to put up a 7-foot goat-headed Baphomet statue. And I probably pronounced that wrong, but... and I have an article here that's from the Raw Story. It's dated January 6, 2014, so that should give you a rough period of time as to when this event was going through that I would like to quickly go over. The Satanic Temple, a religious group based in New York City, on Monday unveiled their design for a monument they hoped to erect at the Oklahoma State House. The 7-foot-tall monument would include a goat-headed Baphomet figure sitting cross-legged on a stone slab flanked by 2 smiling children. The monument would also include quotes from poets Lord Byron and William Blake. The monument has been designed to reflect the views of Satanists in Oklahoma City and beyond. The statue will serve as a beacon calling for compassion and empathy among all living creatures. The statue will also have a functional purpose as a chair where people of all ages may sit on the lap of Satan for inspiration and contemplation, spokesman Lucien Greaves explained. First of all, I want to applaud them at having their commissioner named Lucien. That's phenomenal. Nonetheless, that is like the perfect name for that. But anywho, set that aside. Let me ask the panel. Hearing about this statue, as atheists, and I know this isn't related, but I want to make a point, so I need to do this. As atheists, how do you feel hearing that this group of Satanists wants to put up this statue?
I think it's a great thing, honestly. Not because I'm a supporter of Satan or Satanism or anything like that, but because well, the reason I did read that story, or I read a version of that story, and they're wanting to put that the statue of the Baphomet next to the statue of the Ten Commandments. And I think it sends a message saying that if, Christians can put up their monument, then any religion should be able to put up their monument, Why can't Muslims put up a statue of the Prophet Muhammad? I think Christians would have that's by their own maybe not as a huge...
Yeah, it's going a little far.
Well, yeah, that's true. But yeah, I think it's sending the message that if you can put your religious symbol here, then any religion should be able to put their religious symbol here, and it kind of causes a lot of confusion because there's an issue where if they allow this statue to be put there, then it's gonna send this message of Satanism to everyone that drives by and sees it. But if they don't allow it, then it's a violation of the constitutional right for the freedom of religion. So I think it's good simply for the fact that it gets the conversation going about not trying to force your religious values and beliefs in people's lives in every way you can.
Real quick, we'll get right back to that, but I want to go to the comments for a second because we got a bit of a delayed comment here. But B Banter in the comments when we were talking about As I Lay Dying being a Christian band said, you mentioned the band As I Lay Dying earlier about how the artists of a Christian bands live the life. The frontman of As I Lay Dying, and I can't believe I forgot this, the frontman of As I Lay Dying was booked for putting a hit out on his wife in 2013. So if you didn't know that, the lead singer of As I Lay Dying tried to have someone assassinate his wife. So. Anyways, yeah, I think what you were saying.
How Christ-like.
Yeah. I think what you're saying, the controversy that is brought up here about allowing or not allowing that statue to be put in place is a real good point. And the thing that makes it a good point, I think, is the fact that you are walking such a tightrope here and we have to look at what the Satanic Church says that their message is, calling for compassion and empathy among all living creatures. Now, if that's the message of the Church of Satan, and unfortunately I don't know what the message of the Church of Satan is, but I'm taking this guy on his word for the sake of discussion. If that is the case, I have no problem with this monument being there, because if the Church of Satan truly preaches that they want compassion for all living things, who the hell am I to argue with that message? I want compassion for all living things. I would love it if the whole world got along perfectly. So, that being said, Tom, let's go to you now. I want to get your opinion on the same topic. How do you feel about the statue being put up?
Well, let me just preface this by saying that you claim yourself an atheist. By default, you are a Satanist, from what I hear.
Yeah, but I'm going to get there in just a minute, but yeah.
My viewpoint is very similar. You got one religion that's able to do something. Sure enough, everyone else should have the right to put whatever else they want to put up there. And also, let's not forget, if anyone who's counting and does read the Bible, let's count up how many murders and deaths we have compared from God to Satan in the Bible. And I can see maybe the message is a little bit true about wanting some peace and such. So, yeah, same thing as Travis said. If you're going to have one, you got to be able to allow the other ones as well, too.
If you would like to read the full article about the Satanic Monument being put up at the Oklahoma Capitol, I just posted it right now on the Mind of an Atheist Facebook page. So once again, I encourage everyone to go to the Mind of an Atheist Facebook page. You can read the full article there. I also want to... Oh, no, the comment seems to be gone. I was going to go to a comment, but it seems to have been deleted. Okay, then. Moving forward, as you said, Tom, the misnomer that atheism equates to Satanism is not something that we're not familiar with. I can tell you when I was young and a lot more ignorant, the first time I was exposed to an atheist, the first question I asked him was, oh, so you worship the devil? And transparently so, I have been asked that question many times. The answer is obviously no. None of us believe that the devil is a true entity, so why would we worship him if we don't even believe he exists? But that doesn't stop certain media mongrels, namely the one I can think of is Gretchen Carlson. Not even, I think, a week ago, I think it was actually Tuesday, this past Tuesday, Dave Silverman, president of American Atheists, went on Fox News again, this time to promote a billboard campaign that they were doing in New York City. But Gretchen Carlson wanted to talk about this monument. She sent out a tweet, if I'm not mistaken, that said atheists were putting up this monument. As an atheist, how does it feel, panel, when you get accused of A, worshiping the devil, and B, when someone wrongly puts out A, that you're putting up a satanic monument, and B, mislays what the satanic monument's all about, and then accuses you of the fallacy. In other words, how does it feel to be strawmanned?
Well, if I could mention, usually if someone finds out I'm an atheist, usually their eyes get really big and all of a sudden they get very frightened, it seems like, at times. And a great example of that would be I was in a local restaurant not too long ago, and I was wearing my United Atheists of America t-shirt, and the cashier looked at me and says, "What does that mean?" I'm like, can you read it? You know, and he quietly gave me my change back, and it looked like he thought I was going to jump over and probably strangle him to death.
Yeah.
So when people equate, myself to that of Satanism, it doesn't really bother me, because clearly they have no idea what they're talking about. They're just going off the line that they heard in church or from wherever else, and they're taught to be afraid of people like us. But I'm a very fun-loving guy, so it doesn't really matter to me much.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about you, Travis? How do you feel when that happens to you?
Well, kind of similar to what Tom was saying. When I hear somebody say that, and I've actually, when I came out as an atheist to my family, that's one of the first things that one of my aunts said is, "Oh, so you worship the devil now?" It's like, no, auntie. Obviously, if we don't believe in God, we don't believe in the devil. He's a fictional character in a book. But when someone says that, honestly, I kind of take it as an insult to my intelligence in a way, because if you assume that I'm an atheist because the devil is influencing me, then that means that you don't assume I'm capable of any kind of thought. You think I have to be influenced by some invisible man standing behind me, manipulating my mind or something like that. So it's kind of funny, but it is a little bit insulting in that way. But I just kind of chalk it up to ignorance and people just not understanding what being an atheist is and what atheists, are all about. And they just assume that we don't believe in God, then by default, the opposite, or we believe in the opposing side, which is the devil.
Right.
And
so
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, and whenever a situation arises, I make it a point to just kind of explain that I don't believe in God, but at the same time, I don't believe in the devil either. I believe it's all made up, and kind of proceed to explain what atheism is all about, and it has nothing to do with Satan.
Right. Well, what I found is actually another article from the same website, which did in fact contain the tweet that I'm going to go over real quick. But I want to point out to you that this article is going to include a little bit of banter back and forth between Silverman and Gretchen, so I hope nobody will mind that. The story is called "Fox News host Gretchen Carlson Mistakes Atheists for Satanists." This is nothing surprising. The official tweet that I mentioned earlier reads, and I quote, "Atheist unveils Satan statue plan for OK Capitol, Oklahoma Capitol. Smiling kids with goat-headed demon at Mr. Atheist Pants," which is Dave Silverman, at Holy Bill Donahue, and I'm not sure who that is, and at Rabbi Shmuley, 2 ET, which meant 2 o'clock Eastern Time, which is when Silverman was going on. The article goes like this. Fox News host Gretchen Carlson was raked over the online coals of Tuesday for apparently conflating atheism with Satanism, just before one of her guests did the same. Tuesday morning, Carlson previewed a segment on the Satanist temple's proposed Oklahoma State House statue by proposing on Twitter, and then it reads the tweet again. Later, Carlson refused to apologize for her mistake, writing, "Stop the hate tweets. I made a simple mistake. Thanks. I'm not stupid or asking everyone to believe in my God. Thanks." In the ensuing discussion, American Atheist President David Silverman argued to Carlson that the temple had the right to put up their display. And I believe this is him. "I'm sorry, but that's exactly what it has to be," Silverman said. "Every religion wants to be special, and none of them are. Religious freedom in this country guarantees equality. Whatever the Christians do, the Jews can do, the atheists can do, the Satanists can do. All that religion stuff is bunk to me, but at least it's equal." Carlson, "So you don't have a problem with that being there," Carlson pressed before Rabbi Shmuley Botich interrupted. "This is a democracy," Botich told Silverman. "How many people are Satanists versus believers in God?" This is a constitutional republic, Silverman retorted. When Botech accused him of not believing in democracy, Silverman shot back, "Do you know what a democracy is?" If modern atheism has been reduced to this level of intellectual debate, no wonder why atheism is receding, Botcher said later. First of all, this is not atheism, this is Satanism, Silverman responded before Carlson cut him off. Contrary to Botch's claim, however, Religion News Service reported that in 2012, that the number of Americans identifying as atheists had increased from 1% to 5%, while the number of Americans who describe themselves as religious dropped from 73% to 60%. There's also a video here, which I'm going to post this article to the fan page as well. But having heard all of that, panel, how do you feel knowing that the media not only is making mistakes, once they find out they're making mistakes, they don't apologize and then continue to push these mistakes, even though they literally know better? How does that make you feel?
I think it just, from my, sorry, Travis, you want to go?
No, go ahead.
From my point of view, no apology essentially means they know exactly what they're doing. They're just trying to beat this drum a little bit longer as far as they can down the road because they know those numbers are slipping. They know people are turning away from the nonsense that is religion, whether it be Satanism or Christianity or whatever it is. And I think it is planned. They know what they're doing. And the fact of the matter is, many people saw that first tweet from followers of Gretchen and never saw anything after that, or they missed it. So they're just going to go on living in their own, biased world and thinking that, atheism is equal to Satanism. So. Right.
What about you, Travis?
Well, like Tom just said, I think they know exactly what they're doing. The non-apologetic attitude, I think they know that their followers and supporters are going to feel the same way. So what if those atheists got their feelings hurt? I don't care, And I think for that reason, they feel like it's okay to do it because they know they're going to have support who watch their shows or listen to radio stations or whatever. One thing you pointed out, Jeremiah, from what you just read, was that atheism, or the number of atheists, has gone from 1% to 5%. Actually, honestly, I believe that's a little more. I don't know how accurate.
Well, that's from 2012, so it's been a couple years.
Well, the point I was going to make was I believe that the reason I say I think it's more is because I think there are a lot of atheists out there who just don't openly identify themselves as atheists, just based on societal pressures and fear of religious persecution, that type of thing. So I would really be interested to get my hands on some kind of survey or census that's been taken, maybe anonymously, and see, just how big the atheist population has gotten in the last few years.
Right, or at least just the non-religious population, because that encompasses a lot more as well. That encompasses agnostics and seculars as well. One of the biggest problems that I have with articles like this is that they seem to equate atheism not only with Satanism, but with some sort of destructive mindset that we are out to destroy conservative America, that we are out to annihilate the family unit, that we are out to do all kinds of things which we are not out to do. Travis, one of the things you mentioned is that the people who support these kinds of messages know that they can say these things even if they're not necessarily true, because they do have support, they will have viewers, they will have people to maintain those opinions even if the contrary opinion ends up to be the opposite. Why do you think it is to these people that the truth is superseded by the agenda?
Well, I get just the desire to how to put it in words, the desire to not necessarily further propaganda per se, but I guess they know that if they say these things that so many of their viewers are going to agree with, they'll keep those viewers and gain more viewers. So I think it's an attempt to kind of push ratings, an attempt to kind of pander to viewers in a way. And for instance, Fox News. They're very conservative. Their go-to thing is to just bash any kind of democratic or liberal idea that they can, and they're bashing Obama, and they know that people that watch Fox News watch it particularly to see that type of thing, and so it panders to their viewers, and they know they're going to maintain their ratings in that way, and so that's why, even though they claim to be fair and balanced, they're never going to be actually fair and balanced when it comes to the left or right issues. And I think it's the same way with with the issue at hand here. People know that if they say these things and about atheism, either they're totally incorrect or misconceptions. People are going to agree with it and continue to support their thing, whatever it may be.
Back on September 5th, Dana Perino, a guest host of The Five, which is the network show on Fox News that replaced Glenn Beck after he went off the air, went on the air and said, quote, she was tired of atheists. And the reason she said that was because there was a lawsuit going in about the fact that under God was in the Pledge of Allegiance. Dana Perino and her co-host then proceeded to say that it didn't matter if it was added or when it was added. It simply mattered that this was a Christian-inspired nation with Christian values. She also suggested that we should leave if we don't like it. And this seems to be a common belief system held by a lot of people who don't understand what atheism is and what atheists are and what we're doing. As members of the atheist community, how do you guys feel knowing that there are people who truly believe, because the media has told them this is the case, that we should just up and leave?
It's ridiculous. First off, I kind of cringe every time I hear someone say this is a Christian nation founded on Christian values, and our forefathers were Christians and everything. And I mean, that could farther from the truth. I mean, the Constitution obviously states that there should be a separation of church and state. And the forefathers, I'm reading a book now where there are many instances where many of the forefathers are criticizing religion themselves and saying that only a fool could believe these things. And so I think it's kind of comical, but and at the same time it's kind of sad that people, like you said, because they're told that by the media and it's so reinforced that they actually believe, and so that's their stance. And if you don't like it, you can get out. That whole thing, it's just like, it's just funny.
We have a comment down here in the video from Ricky Hernandez, who says, the deceasing of the labeled non-religious doesn't mean they're atheists. I'm sure the biggest die-off is fundamental religious believers, but they are substituting it for pseudoscience or whatever irrational belief. And so I think the point that he's raising here is that just because people quit identifying as Christian doesn't mean they don't start identifying as something else. Do you think that the media's claims that that Christianity as a majority will remain a majority no matter what is valid? And if so, what is happening? How does that explain the decline in Christianity? If Christianity is going to remain a permanently world-powered religion, what explains the decline despite the media's claims that it is so?
That's interesting. I think that it's going to further decline, and even the idea with the people don't, say they don't believe in God, but they're non-religious. I know quite a few people who just don't go to church because they don't really care anymore. They don't necessarily say they're atheists, but I mean they don't live a life praying and doing their stuff every day. And I'm happy to report that the area that I live in was number one on the list of non-religious atheists, secular in the country right now. So
there you go.
Really happy with that, and I think it's going to continue to decline in this country, and it's possible that it may increase more in other parts of the world. Typically, it probably moves along with poverty lines as well. I did see that growing up with our church that I went to. We went to the poor, and we got those into church, to build our numbers. So I think it's gonna be on the slow decline, and I hope that trend does actually continue.
Right. I think the biggest. Oh, were you gonna say something, Travis?
I was gonna say one thing. I think another reason that happens is because the more people learn about their religion and the more educated people become, they kind of realize that a lot of beliefs and the things that they're taught in their holy books, whatever it may be, they realize the absurdity in it and the lack of logic in it. And so instead of taking the next step to identify themselves as an agnostic or an atheist, I think they would rather just kind of go to the next half step, which would be not Christianity, not agnosticism, but pseudoscience, which is kind of somewhere in the middle. And I think they're more comfortable. It kind of gives them a mental security blanket. they can hold on to their faith and hold on to a belief in a sentient God or a personal God. At the same time, they're not identifying as an atheist or an agnostic, which is what society tells them you shouldn't do. You shouldn't be, you know. So I think that has a little bit to do with it as well.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, with that, we have actually reached the halfway point of the show, and that went really quickly, which is really surprising to me. But nonetheless, what we're going to do now, ladies and gentlemen, is what we always do. We're going to take a quick 10-minute break. We ask you not to go anywhere. Don't get up. Don't leave. Don't do anything. We're going to be right here in 10 minutes. We're going to come back. The link isn't going away. You don't have to click away anything. Just chill out for 10 minutes. We'll be back. When we come back, we're going to talk about things like movies and more. So we hope you'll stick around for the second half of the Mind of an Atheist Cultural Martyrs, and we'll see you right quick. Hello, ladies and gentlemen out there in audience land. We are still a couple of minutes away from resuming, but I just thought I'd churn in now that I got back and give a couple shout-outs real quick. The first one is AtheistRT on Twitter was kind enough to retweet our promotional poster. So big shout-out to AtheistRT, and if you're someone who found the link through AtheistRT, give them a shout-out from us as well. Once again, we also want to give a shout-out to Truth Explained, Tom's page, for being part of the show. I thought I'd also take a minute and give a quick shout-out to a couple of other pages that have repped the show, or the show has repped, respectively, over the previous year, as we are closing in on our one-year anniversary. We want to give a shout-out to Black Atheists, as Azalea was actually a guest on our very first show, so anyone a fan of Black Atheists, nice to see you. Hammer the Gods, which is, of course, in the chat right now, which is our good friend Ryan, and is also our friend Dave, who was unable to join us tonight due to an ailment, as I found out. He's not feeling too well, so get well soon, Dave. We also want to thank Anti-Theism, which is Ellie's page. Ellie's a wonderful guest of the show. We want to thank Atheists for the Equality of All Citizens, which is Reese's page, and I don't think there's a soul here who doesn't like Reese, so I want to give a shout-out to Reese and his page as well. Dave also sends his apologies to the panel and anyone watching. He feels really bad about not being able to be here tonight, and I feel really bad for him, because I wouldn't want to get sick and miss a good episode either. We also want to thank Lee Lemon, who hasn't been on the show in a while, but she's always a great guest when she does come on the show, and she just got done with surgery, so we're happy to see that Lee Lemon is feeling better, and she didn't die. She was really worried about that, so we're glad to see that Lee Lemon didn't die. So thank you for still being with us, Lee Lemon. What else we got here? We want to thank Michael Sherlock, Michael Sherlock is always a great guest of the show. It's always great to have Mike on. So Mike, if you're watching or you watch later, good to see you. Yeah, I mean, it's always been, I guess we'll use these last 2 minutes as just like a sort of thank you. But it was really nice when I started this project last January. I had no idea that it was going to evolve and become what it is today, which is, I think, a really nice collection of a video digital library where anyone with questions or concerns who wants to learn more can go learn more. And I really want to thank everyone who has been a part of putting that library together over the previous year. 2013 was a great year, and I'm hoping that 2014 can be just as good as Mind of an Atheist, if not better. And I'm just really happy that everybody could be a part of that. So if you've been on the show or not, or you want to be on the show, thank you, everybody.
Nice. Yeah, I've actually had a friend I turned on to the show, and she's actually used quite a bit of the arguments in the shows to help her case when she's talking with mostly family members. So it's been
awesome.
Good help for her.
Mm-hmm. That's what the goal was when I got into this thing way back when. The whole point was just to put out an argument. It wasn't to convince people that we were right or that somebody else was wrong. It was always just, like, hey, here's something, you can think about this, you can look at it this way, and I'm glad that it came to be what it is. So yeah, hopefully we can have another real strong year. That being said, it is now time to resume the show, and where I'd really like to go here next is actually into the movie world. We talked about music a lot earlier. I'm hoping we can talk about movies the same way, because I think movies are a thing that we can all connect to. Everyone clearly has seen a movie. Everyone has a favorite movie, in my opinion, and everybody knows the influence, whether or not you're a movie buff or not, everyone knows the influence that movies can have on the world. Movies like Star Wars and Star Trek changed the world forever. Movies like V for Vendetta altered a lot of people's political perspectives. So there's a lot of movies out there that exist. And one of the movies I think that has caused the biggest problem for religious people is the series of both books and movies known as Harry Potter. I actually just got done watching the 7th movie, well, technically the 8th
Me too.
movie, but, just before the show, so
nice.
That's what I was doing. And I couldn't help but watch as I was, finishing up the entire series, remembering back to how against these books and movies the religious were. And so while we were on break, I went and found an article from Huffington Post. And this is a little bit of an older article. It's from September 13th of this past year, but it's called "These Religious Officials Don't Want You to Read Harry Potter, but We Say Ignore Them, and So Do I." BBC Three recently posted a clip from their new show, Teen Exorcists, that shows 3 young American girls who have been performing exorcisms since high school. The young women are now journeying to London because, as we all know, London is the center of witchcraft. They believe that J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter series is the main cause of this. One of the girls says, "I think it's been centuries in the making, but I believe all kind of came to a peak with the Harry Potter books that have come out and the Harry Potter rage that swept across England. They're certainly not the first to think that Harry Potter is equated with the devil and is evil. For the last 10 years, preachers, priests, and religious fundamentalists have been denouncing the beloved series, saying that it encourages witchcraft. The Catholic Church never took an official stance on the books, but many Christian groups, pastors, and priests have spoken out against it." If you want to see the list of people, head over to the Facebook page. I'll be posting the whole article over there shortly. But to the panel, these books, I don't know, Tom, you've read them, Travis, I don't know if you have or if you've seen the movies or whatever the case, but these books and movies tell a really good story. It tells a really solid story about overcoming evil. It tells a good story about what it means to become an adult and accept responsibility and do what must be done and stuff like that. So how do you suppose that the religious groups that exist could take this story and read it as something evil? What do you think, panel?
I think it's kind of ironic, actually. Is my audio okay, by the way, guys?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah,
You guys
you're
hear
good.
me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I think it's kind of ironic, actually. I think from my personal experience, when it comes to any movie that has to do with magic or witchcraft, whether it be Harry Potter or Lord of the my family members who are extremely religious, Southern Baptists, just to kind of give you an idea, the first thing that they say is, stay away from that. That's the devil in that, and that type of thing, just because of the kind of the idea of witchcraft and special powers and that type of thing in the movie. But I think it's ironic because you believe that all these types of things really did happen in the hope that you kind of live your life by. So I think there's a bit of irony in it. It's pretty funny.
Huh. Yeah, that's actually kind of interesting you bring that up, because is it that they are so afraid that maybe one day, years down the road, that the people will believe in Harry Potter as the savior of the world rather than Jesus? I've
often wondered. I've often heard that similar comparison made. Go ahead, Travis. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to Tom's question real quick. I think it's more along the lines of just the idea. Like I said, they're really religious and kind of superstitious at the same time. I think it's the idea that if people get into that more than they get into the Bible, that's going to kind of bring family or family members kind of further away from God, and that's kind of their thinking going into that.
Mm-hmm. I think one of the most interesting things, and I've heard that what Tom said, the comparison there made before, that if religious people were introduced to Harry Potter in the early BC eras instead of the Bible, would we be protesting against the Church of Harry Potter today? Mm-hmm. And I'd like to think that nowadays people would recognize if Harry Potter were ever to try to become a religion, it would be recognized much in the way that Scientology is. In that, sure, a couple of nut jobs are going to bite into it, but most people were able to witness the genesis of this particular religion, and as such were able to reject it. I think that's the big thing when it comes to most religions, but that's a topic for another day, and I don't want to stray too far. Mm-hmm. Suffice to say that the biggest argument that religion makes against reading the Harry Potter series or watching the Harry Potter series, as the article mentioned, is that it encourages witchcraft. Now, my question to the panel is, what threat does witchcraft propose to the Catholic Church? Why would they be threatened by witchcraft? I don't think there's ever been a case that's proven that witchcraft is a thing.
Well, I know... go ahead, Tom.
I was just going to say that there really is no threat. Obviously, we know that it's a bunch of nonsense, but I think it's just used as a tool to scare people into thinking that there is something behind it. And I know growing up, it was used for me as a scare tactic to believe in God and Jesus, and was taught that he will overcome absolutely everything, so there's nothing to really be afraid of, but watch out. So I think it's used for nefarious reasons, honestly.
As you suggested, it might be a tool used by the church to help people help keep people away from certain entities that exist outside the church.
Sure.
If this is the case, and religion is using this tool to keep people away from Harry Potter, wouldn't it behoove them more to focus on moving them away from the movies that feature, for example, demonic possessions, the devil taking over people's bodies, things of that nature, sort of the more evil movies than, say, a fictional story like Harry Potter?
You would think so, but I honestly think that because movies like Harry Potter have such a huge and that kind of captures young people's interests more than, per se, reading the Bible and paying attention to what is being taught in church and what have you. I think it's kind of an issue where the church sees it as competition. So they want to tell you, and not only that, you need to focus on studies, your Bible studies, and focus on, what you really need to be focused on, which is, Jesus and God and the like.
So do you propose then that the church might have an argument against Harry Potter?
But I don't.
No, I was just saying, do you propose that the church then might have an argument against Harry Potter because it proposes Harry to be a sort of godlike figure?
You could say that. I mean, the Bible speaks against worshiping false idols, and I think that many people who are fundamentalists would kind of see the Don of Harry Potter as a fatal type figure. So that may be another reason why they so adamant about protesting these movies and these books, and like I said, it's because they have such a huge following and particularly amongst young people who churchgoers may have a challenge reaching when it comes to religious teachings enough.
There's no question that to get the next generation of believers to exist, you have to go through young people, because religious people are created at a young age. If that is the case, why is the message of the church that you should not watch things like Harry Potter, or that you should not do things involving witchcraft or such, reaching the children? Because as far as I'm aware, there are far more Christians that are willing to watch Harry Potter than there are Christians who are not willing to watch Harry Potter. What do you suppose the problem in relaying that message to the young people is from the church's side?
I think, honestly, and from my situation, from what I've heard back when I was a Christian, they are literally afraid that it's demonic and there's possession involved with that. That's the stuff that I've heard of back probably 8 years ago or more, that they literally are afraid that if you're
I'm not sure what happened, but we were thrown off the air there for a second. I think we're back now, which is nice. So give us just a moment here. I think we were just thrown off the air for some reason. So give us just a quick second, and we will get back to what we were doing there. We apologize for that. Once again, I can't explain what just happened. Hopefully, it was just a temporary hiccup. Travis, I take it you were thrown off the air as well. Travis appears to be frozen down there. Well, in the meantime, while we recuperate, I think the point that Tom was trying to make before he was thrown off the air for whatever happened there was that the actual belief is that these things are so demonic that you can't be afraid to. They're afraid to actually do anything about it because of what's happened. So, Travis, now that we're back, we're still waiting on Tom, who must be experiencing some sort of difficulty. But what do you think about what Tom was saying about how the church is truly afraid that these books are demonic?
I know what he was saying is true. I remember back when I was very young, I was told that a lot about a lot of the different types of movies that involve kind of magic and witchcraft and special powers and the like. That it's demonic, it's possessed by Satan, it's evil, and that type of thing. And it's kind of a bit of a fear tactic, a way to kind of scare children into not believing in that type of thing, because they think it will take them away from God and away from what they need to be focused on. So.
Right. Welcome back, Tom. We just want to reiterate that for some strange reason we were just thrown off the air and we don't exactly know what happened, but we appear to be back, and I just got confirmation from a viewer that we are indeed back. So we apologize for that once again. I don't know what the hell happened, but hopefully it won't happen again. So as I was saying, there goes Tom again. Tom's audio isn't working. So while he figures that out, Travis, I guess it's just you and me for a little while. One of the other problems that I noticed when it came to the church not liking Harry Potter, I think one of the biggest problems that they have is that the young people are more interested in Harry Potter, the fictional story of Harry Potter, than they are in what is supposed to be the literal story of the Bible. Why do you suppose that they would be more interested in a fictional story than what's supposed to be the truth? Hold on a second, Travis, you're having no feedback. I have no mic coming from your end. Whatever Google Hangouts just did, it really just threw us under the bus here. This is not fun.
How about now?
I've got you. You're good now. Go ahead.
Okay. I think it's the presentation. When you watch a Harry Potter movie, there's a lot of cool special effects, and it's really, there's a story that draws you in, and there's characters that you can actually see visually. And I think that's just more appealing to a young audience versus having to go to Sunday school or having to sit through a 2-hour sermon by your pastor at church that you're kind of falling asleep and nodding in and out of. I think it's just easier for a young person to kind of connect with a movie like Harry Potter that has so many special effects versus something that they kind of view as mundane, something that they kind of view as something that they have to do, that their parents are making them do, and their parents are making them learn, that they may not, necessarily have that much interest in. Another thing is, I think there's not necessarily a societal push to watch the movie, but kids kind of want to be within that crowd of all the other kids that have watched the movie, and they want to be able to talk about it with their friends and that type of thing. So I think that plays a small role in it as well.
Real quick, I just want to interject that Tom is having some audio problems, as has elected not to continue to pop in and out of the Hangout to try to fix them. So what I'm going to do, because whatever happened with Google really threw us under the bus, we're going to pull the plug on the show at 9:30 instead of 10, which I apologize for, but I hope won't affect you too much. So with that being said, Travis, one of the points you mentioned is that Harry Potter is presented more appealingly than the Bible is. And how could that be not true when Harry Potter talks about we should work together to defeat evil, and the Bible says we should send bears to eat children? So what do you think the church would have to do to create a more appealing version of the Bible, or in a better way to put this might be, why hasn't religion tried harder to create a more appealing approach? For example, making a movie or writing a book that's encouraging, other than the Bible, obviously.
I think an effort to do that is being made. I believe I just saw a movie trailer a few weeks ago about Noah's Ark 3D or something like that, where they're making like an actual funded and produced movie about the story of Noah's Ark, but they kind of put a weird twist to it where, like, while he's building the Ark, some type of army is trying to invade or something. I just saw like a teaser trailer for it, but I think efforts for that are kind of being made, but I think it just goes back to kids feeling like they're obligated to have to learn this stuff, and they feel like it's kind of being pushed on them, and it's just, something that, well, speaking from my personal experience, this is kind of the reason why I was raised religious, but I was never a very spiritual person. It's just because I felt like it was being forced on me, and they're telling me you have to learn this, you have to study this, you have to do this and that, and that was just that really just kind of turned me off. And I think a lot of kids are maybe the same way. They just kind of feel like it's something their parents are making them do, and you want to rebel against your parents any way you can, and that type of thing.
To go to a couple comments we have here, B Banter says, I think the church is threatened by Harry Potter. If the magic that happens in these books isn't real, then what makes the absurdities in the Bible real? And that's a really good point to think about, the fact that If we can't prove that there's magic, why they can't also prove that there's a supreme being? Mizu Miyagi-sama, who's a friend of the show, also says too much gore, not enough plot might be why young people are not as attracted to the Bible as they are to Harry Potter. But one thing I wanted to talk about, Travis, is, as a matter of fact, there is an attempt right now to put Christianity into a better spotlight as far as movies are going. A friend of the show, Reese, was actually the one who pointed this out, and he shared this on the Mind of an Atheist Facebook page a couple of weeks ago. It's a movie that's coming out that was funded by a group of people who, I can't recall their names, but it stars a couple of people, a couple of names you might remember, and I'm actually going to go into the screen share right quick so that you can see this. It's called Persecuted. Persecuted here. It's in theaters May 9th. I Will Not Be Silent. And it's about the supposed persecution of Christians and, you know, the stuff that they do. So I'm going to get out of the screen share here. Whoa, that's nasty. Okay. So the thing that's real taking about that is, let me put it to you this way. Do you think, Travis, that people of religious faith are persecuted in this country?
I believe in their eyes they believe they are, but I honestly don't believe so. I think religion is kind of pushed in their face in every type of media and every type of way that, you know, it's kind of silly to say that religious people are being persecuted. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think what I would probably say is that the people of minority religions might experience persecution from time to time, examples being Islam or Buddhism or Hinduism. But the main religion in America is no question Christianity, and I think you're spot on when you say that they think in their mind that they're being persecuted. And the reason I thought this movie was so striking is because the production of it hit peak right after the controversy from Duck Dynasty cast member Phil Robertson. Now, for those of you who don't know about, and I needed to talk about this because it's important, but for those of you who don't know who Phil Robertson is, he's a member of the show Duck Dynasty, which is a show that's on A&E. Is it A&E or is it AMC? A&E, okay. I believe, and it's completely fake, by the way.
Yeah, oh yeah, I mean, everybody should know that most television shows, I hate to be the guy, but most television shows are totally fake. So, that being said, Phil Robertson made some controversial remarks about a month ago where he stated things like homosexuality is on a slippery slope to bestiality and perversion and child molestation and such like that. At the same time, he also suggested that African Americans were happier during slavery and that people should marry 15-year-old girls. Quite interesting comments from the man. And you can find, I'm not going to source those on the Facebook page because you can find those with a simple Google search. Suffice to say that, isn't it interesting, Travis, the double paradox that exists here between people who think they're persecuted because suddenly Christianity isn't being treated the same way it was versus the true victims of, for example, homosexuality, like people who are beaten to death and tortured, are expected to be silent because it's not comfortable for Christians to accept an alternate lifestyle. Yeah,
it is. It's just pretty ironic. You know, you hear people say all the time, or in this particular case with Phil Robertson, people are saying he's just exercising his freedom of speech, and people who disagree with that, you're stifling his freedom of speech. Yet they don't see the irony in the fact that if someone is speaking against what he's saying, they're also exercising their freedom of speech. So how can you allot him freedom of speech but not someone who has an opposite view? I think that's I mean, obviously it's wrong, but I think it's just kind of hypocritical in that sense.
Do you think that it is a religious hole in culture, or in other words, a hole created by religion in culture, when it is socially acceptable in most cases to suggest that an entire group of people is damned and deserving of hell because they live life differently, yet it is socially reprimandable if you stand in opposition to those commonly held beliefs that homosexuality is wrong or that homosexuality is a sin?
What was the first part of the question? You kind of
do you think that it is a hole created by religion in culture that it is acceptable to preach against something like homosexuality, but reprimandable to stand up in favor of it?
Yeah, I definitely think there is. I think that is a hole in society. Religious beliefs in general are contradictory, and when they're pushed on to people who believe these types of things, I mean, it's going to become the normal way of thinking. Like you just said, religious persecution of homosexuals it's taught to be okay because the Bible, speaks of in different instances about homosexuality being wrong and it being a sin. So, Christians are naturally going to believe that those people are damned to hell, and the belief and the public voicing of that opinion is the right thing because it goes along with their faith.
Right. I guess my next question would be, do you think that the Phil Robertson controversy was actually an issue of freedom of speech, or do you feel that that was an argument that was used to mask up the real issue, which was the idea of religious people believing they're persecuted?
I don't believe it was a freedom of speech issue. I think a lot of religious people realized that what he was saying was bigoted and idiotic and moronic in the way he said it. And I think the issue of this being a freedom or the portrayal of this being a freedom of speech issue was really kind of used to kind of cover that up and as a way to reflect the attention away from his comments and just make it a bigger, broader issue that more people are going to just jump on the bandwagon and try to support. Mm-hmm. It's easy to sympathize with someone when as an American, it's easy to sympathize with someone when their freedom of speech is being persecuted. I mean, you hear that saying so often in the media. It's easy to sympathize with that person than it is to sympathize with a person who's saying that homosexuality is a sin. You might as well, have sex with animals, and black people were okay with slavery and that type of thing. I think if that issue was really focused on his comments and not the broader freedom of speech thing, I think there would be a lot more people who would have been outraged and just, totally against the comments and the situation in general.
Well, see, the fortunate thing for those of us who disagree with Phil Robertson is that the facts are on our side. And what I mean by that is the fact that his suspension was what really caused a lot of people to get ruffled because they believed that his freedom of speech should have not hindered his job impact. Mm-hmm. What they don't seem to understand is that just like with television is the same with every other network, you are under a contractual obligation, A, to not make your network and or your employer look bad, and B, to prevent yourself at your most positive face. If that is Phil Robertson's most positive face, I feel very bad for him as a person because he is very shallow. However, I do believe, once again, that he was creating a character, but we'll get into that at another time.
He definitely was.
The suspension that the suspension that he was given, and to go back, I can talk about creating characters because I write professional wrestling. I know a thing or two about creating fake characters, so. The suspension that he either warranted or did not warrant, whichever your opinion is, was as a result of a violation of a contractual obligation not to make the network look bad. Even if he was serious or if he was saying those comments in character, it doesn't matter because A&E's network does not reflect and share those same views. Because of this, it is A&E's opinion that he made their network look bad. Because they feel that he made their network look bad, they suspended him because it was against his contract. Once again, I want to stress this. It was against his contract to make the network look bad. So you can throw out any freedom of speech arguments you want. You can throw out any religious arguments you want. It does not matter. The only issue that came into play here was that he violated a contract, which got him suspended, which is what I would expect from any employer anywhere under that same circumstance.
Mm-hmm. So. And it was kind of a weird issue because once he was suspended, he was brought back very shortly after that, and I think the reason was because the issue was made into the freedom of speech thing. There were so many supporters and viewers of that show who live in the Deep South and who go hunting. I mean, I live in Birmingham, Alabama, and I live around a bunch of people that are like that. People that kind of go hunting every weekend, drive big trucks with tow wedges on the front and that type of thing, and they're really into that show and they support the image of the Southern American, the way that show portrays it, and for that reason alone, I believe a lot of people were willing to kind of voice their outrage for his being suspended, and I think the threat of them losing viewers was more important to A&E than maintaining their integrity and leaving Phil suspended.
And I think that's the real big question, is whether or not we should sacrifice our integrity to maintain the cultural expectations that have been presented before us. And I think that's actually a really good summary point for the entire episode, is that at what point have we sacrificed our integrity to maintain cultural aspects that might not necessarily be something that we want? You know, should we encourage more musicians to spread a Christian message and live a non-Christian lifestyle if we're going to throw them under the blanket of Christianity? Should we allow all religions to post monuments and then damn religions that aren't Christianity for not following Christianity and wanting to put up their own monuments? Should we encourage the writing of books like Harry Potter and turn around and say that they're satanic and demonic, and then at the same time have half of our fan base read them anyway? These kinds of questions about cultural anomalies and the significance that these impacts have are questions that need to be answered, and questions that need to be brought to the forefront of discussion when it comes to, is religion impacting or destroying our culture? With that, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of the show. I want to thank Tom, who was unfortunately unable to join us for the end of it. I also want to thank Travis, of course, for being part of the show. And I want to give a shout out to Dave, who would have been here had he not been sick, which, once again, it's really unfortunate he got sick, and our best wishes to Dave. We want to thank, of course, Truth Explained, which is Tom's page, and we want to thank No God, No Peace, Travis, for joining us, and we want to thank all the other pages that I mentioned earlier and all the ones that I didn't, all the people that helped make this show what it is. We've been doing this Atheist Song of the Week thing for a while now, and so I figured it's time to bring that back. This week's Atheist Song of the Week is Do Not Look Down by Meshuggah. I will give a quick warning. If you're not a metal fan, probably shouldn't listen to this one. It's pretty wild, even for regular metal fans. So Do Not Look Down by Meshuggah is this week's Atheist Song of the Week. With that being said, folks, once again, we want to encourage you to go to the Mind of an Atheist Facebook page, where you can find all 3 articles that we talked about in the show and a ton more. Really encourage you to go there and give it a like. We also want you to make sure that you're subscribing to the channel on YouTube for previous episodes and all kinds of lovely, lovely stuff. We also want to thank Atheist RT on Twitter for retweeting us. That was really kind of you. You did not have to do that, but we thank you for doing it. And we want to thank all of the people who participated in the comments of the show. Your feedback is awesome, and knowing that we can interact with our audience is even more awesome. So thank you from everyone here at the Mind of an Atheist. We'll see you next time. Hopefully we won't have any more bugs that'll kick people off the air. And
doesn't like us.
It does not. I think it was God. God did it.
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah, he didn't throw us off for long, though, so clearly Google is more powerful than God. It certainly seems to know more. At any rate, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week on The Mind of an Atheist. I'm Jeremiah. So long, have a nice day, and live your life the way you would, whether or not there was a God.